First of all, in your folder, you should have several items. On the right-hand side, you should have a leaflet that looks like this. On this is a FAFSA Frenzy leaflet. On one side is Spanish, one side is English. We give this out just in case you can't make it to the FAFSA Frenzy that's hosted here. That FAFSA Frenzy, by the way, is Sunday, November 13th, 2 to 4, Lake Career and Technical Center. I'll say that again, and if you didn't get this, you might want to pick one up. Again, FAFSA Frenzy, Lake Career and Technical Center, Sunday, November 13th, 2016, from 2 to 4. And if you can't make it to that one, you can look on the leaflet. There's a URL on there that you can go to and see if there are any other FAFSA Frenzies that are available. We'll talk a little bit about what happens at those FAFSA Frenzies in a little bit, but just know that if you are having difficulty filling out your FAFSA, this is where you can go to one of the FAFSA Frenzies. Another item on the right-hand side is this leaflet that says Midwest Student Exchange Program. This is specifically if your student, if the student, is going to an out-of-state college. If that state that the student's going to is part of the Midwest Student Exchange Program, then there's a good chance your student could get in-state tuition rates for going out of state. Okay? So if you are thinking about doing that, you can check it out. There are also two regular sized pieces of paper, and they both pertain to the FSA ID. We will talk detail about the FSA ID in a bit. However, the most important piece, I think, in your toolkit, in your folder, is the Missouri source. And this is for this year, it's the newest one. The Missouri Department of Higher Education prints this out as the source for planning and paying for college, and specifically gives you a lot of information about the financial aid aspect. So this is what we're going to kind of run through as I go through the presentation, okay? At the end, I'll ask for any kind of general questions that you might have that everybody could benefit from hearing the answer to. If you have specific questions regarding your specific situation, I'll stay after the presentation and I will attempt to answer those questions. I will say right now that I am not an expert at the FAFSA. I do know some about the FAFSA, but I am an expert at getting answers and knowing where to go to get those answers. So it may be I'll have to write your information down and get back to you if I can't give you the answer, but I will do what I can to get one to you. Okay, this is going to be kind of odd, but we're going to start on page 14. On page 14 of the source, you will find information about the planning part of college. Oh, I do want to say, there's going to be a quiz at the end, by the way. You can't leave unless you pass the quiz. You laugh now. No, you'll be able to leave, but there will be a quiz, I promise. Mostly about the financial aid aspect. But the planning part is important too. Through page 14 through I think page 19 is information about planning for college. The first slide that we have, one of my coworkers created this slide for us because she thought these were some really important aspects of researching your schools. First of all, you need to learn as much about the schools that you're interested in going to. Admissions, selectivity, and application fees. Do they require a specific ACT? Do you have to be in a certain top something % of your class in order to be admitted? What is it? What are the admission requirements? Excuse me. And then application fees. They vary widely. I mean, the range is crazy, and sometimes they won't have an application fee, but sometimes they can cost up to $100. Be aware that if you're not able to pay all those application fees, you might want to talk to your counselor because there are waivers for application fees, and you might be eligible for a waiver, okay? Costs and available financial aid, which we're going to talk about that real soon. Campus resources and services, student activities and clubs, available programs and majors, and housing options. These are all very important aspects of your research whenever you're researching your schools. Okay, this is for our seniors. If you have not done so already, you'll need to take an ACT. Missouri is big about ACT. There are some schools that will accept SAT scores, but ACT is the most widely used score that they use in order to determine your eligibility for scholarships and even admission. So if you have not taken the ACT test, I encourage you to do so, and I encourage you to actually take it 3 times. And there's a reason for that. Research has found that usually, it is true, 3rd time is the charm. Usually, the 3rd time is the highest score that a student will receive on the ACT. Why is it important to get a high ACT? And I'll give you kind of an example. I actually have a senior right now in high school, and she is 2 points away from getting $2,500 more a year in institutional scholarships. And so I'm encouraging her, retake it, do as much as you can. She's taken it twice, and she actually did better on the first one, but I told her, take it again, because it could be the difference of moolah. And it could be the difference of being admitted to a school or not, okay? Narrow your college choices and submit admissions applications. Now is the time to start submitting your applications. Narrow those schools down and start submitting those applications. Again, if you need to seek out a waiver for some of those application fees, definitely see your counselor about that. One of the most important aspects that seems to go overlooked sometimes are deadlines. Every institution is going to have a series of deadlines for their students to meet. This is for deadline for filling out the FAFSA, deadline for signing your promissory note, deadline for getting your housing, of course deadline for admissions. The thing about it is, they're all different. Every institution is going to have their own. So whatever institutions the students are looking at, look online and find out what those deadlines are. And in my case, I actually created a calendar. I bought a calendar that was just for college deadlines for my daughter. So every day when she was walking out of her room, she would see on her board if there was anything coming up as far as deadlines are concerned. So it's always a good thing to grab those deadlines, write them down, pay attention to those. When trying to narrow your college choices, one of the most important aspects of doing that is actually visiting the colleges. I encourage you greatly to do this. And I know I'm going to talk about my daughter a lot, but she's your typical 17-year-old girl. The first college that we went to visit was, and I'll say Stevens College. And she loved it. If it's a private college, I knew it was going to be expensive, and we'll talk about that later. But the best part about Stevens is she was able to take her dog. She could have her dog in the room. And so she's like, yeah, I'm going to go here. And that's what made her determine where she wanted to go. And I thought, I don't know about this. We're going to go visit some more. And so then we went to MSU. And then she fell in love with MSU's campus. She goes, oh, I like this campus so much more. I guess I can do without my dog. We went and ate the food there and everything. And she was like, yeah, it's all right. I can live with it. The dorms are all right. I can live with that. So MSU's up there. Then we went to UCM. And then she's like, oh, I thought that was my home. It's Springfield, but it's not. It's UCM, Mom. I know it's UCM. Okay, all right. We'll go with that. We ate the food, visited a class, and you know, we like it. We like UCM. Then we went to SEMO. And you think I'm going to say she fell in love with SEMO, but she didn't. She did not like SEMO. She didn't feel at home. And of course her thing is, well, everything was so spread out and there's hills everywhere. I would have to walk uphill both ways every day. You know, it was like, okay, whatever. But she just didn't like the feel. It wasn't her. And so she has narrowed it down. Stevens is no longer an option. She was excited about the dog, but she realized that wasn't her feel. That wasn't her fit. Even though the class sizes were small, she didn't really necessarily feel like she needed a real small class. She was pretty content in being in a class that was a little larger. No big deal. And so Springfield, much bigger. Class sizes were bigger. She felt comfortable there. But UCM, it was just like the mama bear, papa bear, baby bear. UCM seemed to fit her just right. And so that's what we're looking at now. And that's why I say it's really important to go on those college visits so you can get a feel for what you're looking at. And you can do this at any time. Don't think that you have to do it on only those visitation days. You can call the admissions office and schedule your own thing for you, for your visit, your college visit. You can even go into the classrooms of the major that you're looking at and get a feel for how the classes are. And I encourage you to do so. Again, I encourage you to eat the food because it may sound silly. If your student doesn't like the food that they offer, your wallet is going to shrink up real quick and their stomachs will get rather large because they will eat out a lot. And you don't want that. So make sure, you know, they like the food if you're looking at cost-conscious stuff, and that they would benefit from the meal plan. Another thing that I encourage you to do, more than any of that, is to visit and make sure your student knows where the financial aid office is located. 85% of all students that go to college receive some kind of financial aid. 90% of that 85% have to visit that office at least twice a semester. So it's good to know who they are, to be familiar with them. And if you're in special circumstances, and I'll talk about some of those special circumstances later, you want to be familiar with your financial aid officers. So just go in, introduce yourself, say, hey, you'll see me a few times. But it's always good, and they encourage you to do that. Definitely check out the housing options as well. Don't leave that out. One other thing that you can do, the Missouri Department of Higher Education has a program that this is part of. It's called Journey to College. We help out with Apply Missouri events, with FAFSA Frenzies, and with Decision Day. But another aspect of it is our social media. We have a Facebook page, and we also have a Twitter account. The Facebook page is Journey to College with all of it spelled out. The Twitter account is Journey with the number 2 College. And you can, you know, friend it, follow, whatever you have to do. But we often put out there, if there are deadlines coming up for something, we'll put that out there. If there are some awesome scholarships out there, we'll put that out there. Decorating your dorm room, I mean, there's just a wide range of things that we put out there on Facebook and Twitter. If you're on A+, stay on that A+ track. Don't slide off of it. That's important to maintain. If you are A+ eligible, you've done everything you have to do, and you are considering going to a 4-year college, don't think that you can't use any aspect of that A+, because there are many 4-year colleges out there that will accept all of your A+ material but turn it around into an institutional scholarship. You may not get as much as the A+, but don't count it out. Don't count A+. It's always beneficial to ask any institution that you're interested in, what do you do if you don't accept A+? Are there any institutional scholarships? The last thing on this page is submit your FAFSA before February 1st. I say before February 1st because that's the state priority deadline, but you will need to check with the institutions that you're interested in because they may actually want you to fill that FAFSA out before February 1st. If you are eligible for any of the Missouri grants or scholarships, to get a guarantee, if you're eligible, for those funds, you have to have the FAFSA in by February 1st. If you wait until after February 1st, then you have to have it in by April 1st, but it will no longer be guaranteed. It will be, if there are funds still out there, we'll sort it out, okay? But if you're eligible and you have your FAFSA in by February 1st, then you're guaranteed to receive state funds. Again, if you're eligible, okay? You also, on page 16 and 17, there's more information on there that I'm not going to go into great detail about, but it's about exploring your career options and using Missouri Connections. I know many students here are already into the Missouri Connections, using that to scout out what career they would want and what program they would then have to go into for college. Weighing your options on page 17, definitely good for the students to read. On page 18 and 19, those are some of the things that I just talked about. With narrowing it down, visiting different campuses. There is a checklist, a roadmap for juniors and seniors at the bottom of page 18 and 19. But now what I really want to do is to get to the big money. The reason why we're here is the financial aid aspect. We're going to start on page 22. I did tell you that you're going to have a quiz, and I'm actually going to try to key in, like what is important, what you'll have to know for that quiz. Up here, before we get into the nitty-gritty of financial aid, there are a few terms that you should know, that I will say a few times, and if you don't know what they are, you can always refer back. If you look on pages 8 through 11, there are a ton of terms you should know, but these are some of the most important ones. The first one is COA, cost of attendance. This is an estimate of a student's total education-related expenses for an enrollment period at a specific college. This does not just mean tuition and books. It means, transportation, the meals, the housing, everything that's involved is considered COA. Every school is required to put their COA, an estimate of the COA, on their website for you. So you'll have a good idea of what the COA is, what the cost of attendance is. Again, is it just tuition and books and stuff like that? No, it's everything. It's the rooming, the travel expenses, all of that. Meals, all of that. The next thing is expected family contribution. Expected family contribution is considered the EFC. The federal government's measure of a family's financial strength used to determine the types and amounts of financial aid. Because it is labeled expected family contribution, many people think that, oh, this is what I have to pay out of my pocket. Not necessarily. It is, again, a measure that the government uses to determine your family's financial strength. That will become important later when I explain how they determine your financial need, okay? The last thing I want to say is verification. Many people consider verification a type of audit, like the IRS does the audit. It kind of is, and I will have to say, on average, 1 out of every 3 college students are pulled for verification. What does this mean? Well, you all are going to fill out a FAFSA, and you're going to input this information, and you're going to send it off, right? They're going to get this information, they're going to put it in their books. However, how do they know you're telling the truth? How do they know that everything is accurate? Well, just like the IRS does. They ask you for proof. So everything that you enter, your W-2s, your tax statements, whatever it might be, you may have to actually take it to the financial aid office and show them, yes, this is what it is. It sounds like it's a scary process, but it's really not. You're not in trouble. Your child is not all of a sudden going to be ineligible for something. It's just a process that they have to use to make sure that they're doing their jobs effectively. Okay? All right, on page 22, you will see there are types of financial aid. There are actually 4 types of financial aid. This will be on the quiz. Many people do not realize that scholarships are actually considered financial aid, but they are. Scholarships. Financial assistance that is usually based on merit or ability and typically does not have to be repaid. Grants, that's another kind. They are need-based financial assistance that generally does not have to be repaid. Employment, this is what we consider work-study as well. Jobs available to students as a way to earn money towards their educational expenses. And loans, federal and private loans available to students and parents to help pay for educational expenses. Next question that will be on the quiz. What is the #1 way to apply for scholarships, grants, loans, and work study from the federal and state government? Filling out the FAFSA. Okay? That is the #1 way, the only way you can receive, like the Pell Grant that we'll talk about later, any kind of grants, scholarships offered from the state or the federal government, you have to complete the FAFSA. So that's why it's important to, if you've already completed the FAFSA, great, and I may bore you for a little while because I'm actually going to talk a little bit about it. The first thing that you have to do to complete the FAFSA is to get an FSA ID. Can I get a show of hands of how many people have actually got their FSA ID? Okay, there's some that have not, so bear with me because this is a process. And we're finding that nationally, this is becoming an issue. And there are a few reasons why. And I'm going to, in your packet, you're going to find those 2 pieces of paper that discuss the FSA ID. I encourage you to go over those even after we talk about it a little bit. But the first thing is, what is an FSA ID? You can consider the FSA ID, that was used to be called PIN, by the way, P-I-N, as a legal signature that can be used to electronically sign important federal student aid documents, including the FAFSA, and direct loan promissory notes. It allows students and parents to identify themselves electronically to access all of the FSA websites. And it is made up of a username and password that can be used to log into FAFSA on the web. I'm sure we've all encountered some place on the web where you had to come up with your own username and password. This is kind of the same thing, but it's a little more detailed. Let me see what I have here. Well, we'll go to the next one. Okay, we'll talk about that too. Whenever you go and get your FSA ID, because you will have to have it to sign your FAFSA, it will ask for you to come up with your own username and your own password, okay? Which is fairly simple. But then it gives you this information, you know how they have that security questions, and they have the drop-down menu where you can choose a question and then you write in the answer. They'll have 2 of those that they give you, and you just have to come up with the answer. But there are 2 of them that you have to create yourself. And that's why it's important that a student creates their own FSA ID and a parent creates his or her own FSA ID. One of the other things that you will have to make sure you do is to have your own email account. They will ask for an email address that they can send all of the information to that email address. So the student has to have an email address, but it cannot be shared or combined with the parents. So the parent will also have to have an email address. Our suggestion is for the students not to use your high school email address, because you have to fill out a FAFSA every year you go to college. And after you graduate high school, sometimes they eliminate those email accounts, so you'll no longer have access to it. So if you have to create a Hotmail, a Gmail, whatever you have to create, and for parents, you may not want to use your work email. Don't know if you'll be there for how long, you never know. So I suggest getting some kind of Gmail or Hotmail account. Another thing it's going to ask you for is an important date in your life. It cannot be your birth date. it will flag you. You can't use your birth date. What is the likelihood that you're going to remember this date if you have to go back and verify for security reasons that you are who you are? For me, I did it, when did I fill out the FAFSA? It's only been a few weeks ago. And I can't even tell you what my date was. I don't remember what date I put down. That's a problem for me, and I know it is. As an MDHE employee, I cannot tell you that you should write this information down. So I am not going to tell you, wink, wink, to write this information down, okay? If you go against what I'm saying, wink, wink, and write your information down, you must keep it secure in a secure location because this is your electronic signature. You don't want anybody else to have your electronic signature. What I did, not as an MDHE employee, whenever I typed in my username and my password, I made sure that I hit the little key where you can see everything that you type instead of just being dots, so I could see it. And then I screenshotted it. Is that a word? Screenshotted? I took a screenshot of it. And then I went to the next one. And my questions, I made sure I could see my answers. And I I'm going to say it, screenshotted it again. So now I have it forever. And I've kept those screenshots in a secure file on my computer. It's an option that you may not want to do because MDHE doesn't recommend it. Wink, wink. Okay. So anyway, why do I say that it's important? It is hard, it is very, very, very hard to access your account if you have forgotten that information. You get 3 tries and then you're locked out of your account. There are ways that you can get access back. The first thing they'll tell you is to go and review the information at studentaid.gov, FSA ID. Most people don't get very far with that. They realize that's not helping. Then they go to FSAIC, which there's a phone number, and I encourage you to write this down. It's 1-800, the number 4, FED-AID, FEDAID. 1-800-4-FED-AID. They also do under the help page in the FAFSA.gov, they have the contact us where you can actually chat online with someone if you have to do that. But from everything that I've heard, it's very hard to get access back into that account. Another thing, whenever you fill out your FSA ID, your name has to match exactly what your social security card says. So if you go by Bob Henry, but your real name is Robert Henry, make sure you're typing in Robert Henry, and make sure that your social security number is the social security number that is given to you, because we have, there are times where they verify all of this, and if anything is screwy, they will not let it go through. Okay, and sometimes it's difficult to get that to go through. So, not trying to scare you, but you know what's crazy? That's the hardest part about the FAFSA, is getting the FSA ID. That's what I think, anyway, because they're making it so easy now. But that's the FSA ID information. I do encourage you to look through those 2 sheets of paper that are in there about the FSA ID. Do we have any juniors or parents of juniors here? Okay, a few of you. For my juniors specifically, but for anybody who wants to know, you can go on page 25. There's information about the FAFSA Forecaster. FAFSA Forecaster. You can get an estimate of what you could potentially be eligible for as far as financial aid is concerned from the government, just by answering a few questions instead of having to go through the whole FAFSA process to figure out, what's going on. Of course, if you're a junior, you can't fill out the FAFSA. You can't fill it out until you're a senior going on to college. So if you're curious now, what's out there? What's an estimate of my eligibility? You can go to the FAFSA Forecaster, answer a couple questions, and it'll give you an estimate. Okay, for everybody that's going to fill out the FAFSA, I do encourage you to make sure that when you go to the website to fill it out, it's www.fafsa.ed.gov. Make sure that gov is the last thing in that URL. There are some websites out there, even though it says the first word in the acronym FAFSA is free application for federal student aid, they ask for credit card information or debit card information. You're not on the right site if it does that. Never give financial information as far as if they can access your credit card or debit card to pay for this application. It is free. Make sure the GOV is behind the FAFSA. Okay. I don't have much on that. If you look on page, let's look on page 28. There are some documents that you'll need to make sure that you have on hand in order to complete the FAFSA. On page 28, there are two green columns. On the right-hand side is a list of all of those documents that you may need if they're applicable to you. Okay? So if you're wondering what you might need before you fill out the FAFSA so you can have it all gathered and ready to go, this is the page you need to look at. Page 28 on the right side. If you look on the green column on the left side, this is another big question. As a student, do I fill it out as an independent or a dependent? If you go through those questions on the left-hand side in green and can answer yes to any one of them, you will fill out the FAFSA on your own as an independent. If you have to answer no to all of those questions, you are dependent and you will need your parents' financial information. And your parent will have to sign the FAFSA. The next question, well, I'll take a me for an instance. I'm divorced and remarried. I have joint custody of my senior, but she lives with me more than 50% of the time, and I pay more than 50% of her costs of living. He does provide child support, but again, I'm the one that she lives with more than 50% of the time. So who would you think would be the parents for filling out her FAFSA, because she is a dependent? Some would say, well, since you have joint custody, it would be her biological father and myself. That's not the case, because she actually lives with me and my current husband. I have to take my current husband's financial information and my information, and that's what you use. So how do you know? How do you know who your parents are? If you look on page 29, there are some questions and answers about that. Which parents' information should I report on the FAFSA? So if you are wondering, definitely take a look through that. If you still have questions about that, just let me know after the presentation and I'll try to help out. Okay? If you look on page 30, this is like my favorite page because it is like the coolest thing since sliced bread. On the left-hand side, there are 6 steps to transfer IRS data into your FAFSA. This is the first year ever in the history of FAFSA that seniors were allowed to start submitting their FAFSA in October of their senior year. Before, they had to wait until at least January of their senior year. Why? Because they had to wait until the taxes were filed. And we don't get our W-2s until the end of January normally, and we couldn't do that. Well, now we're going to prior year. So the seniors this year, this is a quiz question by the way, the seniors this year will use the tax information from 2015. Okay, 2015. They will be filling out the FAFSA for 2017-18 because that's where they'll actually be in college, 17-18. So 2 years before 2017, prior year, is 2015, okay? What's the greatest thing about that? The IRS already has this information in their system. So when you're filling out the FAFSA, as long as you have the same address as what was on your 2015 taxes, as long as you didn't change your name, get married and change your name, as long as you didn't have to go back and do a bunch of amendments to your taxes, you should be eligible to just hit a button on the financial page and it will automatically pull your tax information up and fill out that financial part of the FAFSA for you. Yay! I will say from experience, my husband and I, we filed joint in 2015. We were eligible to do the IRS data retrieval tool. It was wonderful. I hit the button. The hardest part was determining how much he made compared to how much I made, because it asks you to break that down. So we actually had to get out our W-2s and look, you know, oh, I made this much and I made this much. And, because when we filed joint, those two things were combined. And that was one of the hardest things about filling out the FAFSA. It was wonderful. Now, if some problem arises that you cannot use the IRS data retrieval tool and you're having difficulty, that's when I say, okay, it's probably a good thing to go to one of those FAFSA frenzies where there'll be experts on hand to help you out. Or you can go to that 1-800-4FED-AID. This is a quiz question, by the way. So you can go to FAFSA Frenzy, 1-800-4FED-AID, or, especially if you have a special circumstance, and I'm going to say that in a second, you can go to the financial aid office of a post-secondary institution and ask them what to do. In particular, one of those post-secondary institutions that the student is interested in, okay? And I'm going to give you an example for a special circumstance, actually two circumstances. One circumstance, my daughter's really good friend, her father passed away last year. It's really sad and still upsets us, but anyway, her father had passed away. In 2015, he made good money. He made really good money. And it looked that way. But now he's gone, and they don't have that coming in. So when the colleges are getting this FAFSA, and the SAR, the student aid report, and we'll talk about that, they're saying, oh, well, they have a lot of money. That wasn't the case. So what she did was actually contact the financial aid office and said, this is what's happening. They said, okay, well, this is the proof that we need to have, as long as you can verify, you know, unfortunately that your father has passed and there's no longer that income coming in, we can make a, what is that called, a PJ, a professional judgment, and then based on that professional judgment, they can award financial aid based on that, okay? So that was one of those extreme circumstances. I have another circumstance where a father was a contractor, and you know, 1 year he makes fantastic money. I mean, it's like great, and the next year, wash out. You know, and so it looks great on paper, but that's not what's going on. And if you are in that situation, it's always good to contact that financial aid office. Okay? Alrighty. One other thing, once you've used that IRS data retrieval and all of that, one of the problems that we've encountered is that sometimes you fill it out and you're all excited, I'm done, but you forget to hit the submit button. So it just stays out there. Nothing happens with your FAFSA unless you hit that submit button. How do you make sure that that submit button is hit? You make sure you have your confirmation page. Print out your confirmation page. If the printer is not working, screenshot it, whatever you have to do, okay? I do want to say on the confirmation page on the bottom right-hand corner, it may have some information about you're going to be eligible for an unsub loan of this amount, or you're not eligible for this, but you may be eligible for that. I wouldn't put too much weight on that. The only thing that I would wait for, really, is that financial aid award letter from the institutions that you put on your FAFSA. You have the ability as a student to put up to 10 post-secondary institutions on your FAFSA. Wherever you're going to college, every college is going to have a code. You put that code on the FAFSA, you can put up to 10 of them on there. Every post-secondary institution that you put on there is going to receive your SAR along with you. The SAR is considered the Student Aid Report. And on there, it's a report provided to students after completing the FAFSA. It should take no more than 3 days for you to get this. And it contains your EFC. Do you remember what EFC is? Expected Family Contribution. And results of federal financial aid database matches. You do need to take a look at your SAR, make sure all of the information on there is accurate because it is kind of a breakdown of what you submitted for FAFSA. One thing to remember is that expected family contribution is not what you have to pay out of pocket. It's just, again, a measure that the government uses to determine the family's financial strength, okay? So you just need to check the SAR for accuracy, and that's about all you have to do with that. If you do find that you need to change things, you'll need to get back into your FAFSA and make those changes. Once all of the SARs are sent out to the financial institutions, you should start receiving, it may take a while, maybe even in the spring, award letters from those post-secondary institutions. When you fill out the FAFSA, one of the things I forgot to say, if you are thinking about doing work study, studying on or working on campus in order to earn money to pay for school, you have to indicate that on the FAFSA. If you do not indicate it where they ask you if you're interested, then you will not be eligible for work study. But that does not mean that you can't change your mind. If you think you might want to do it, check it. Check it on the FAFSA. And then whenever you get your student aid report, not student aid report, your award letter. When you get your award letter, it will have on there how much money you're eligible for as far as work study is concerned. If you decide you don't want to do it, actually, you don't have to accept anything on that award letter. Not a thing, if you don't want to. So many people get the award letter and think, oh, I have all of this money. Well, realize loans are going to be on there too. If you accept all of that, the loan part, you're going to have to pay that back. So if you don't need everything that's on there, you make sure that you send it back and say, I don't want this and this and this and this. Can you accept all of it? Sure, if you really need it. Yeah, but just realize you don't have to. And we encourage you that if you don't need the loans, don't take them. Okay? But this, not the SAR, the award letter, that's the money that you're going to get. That's the money that you're eligible to receive. Okay? So again, I said don't put too much stock into what that confirmation page says. Don't read in too much to your EFC. The way that they award the financial aid, you can look on page 32. On page 32, there's a little blue box. How is financial aid determined? What the institutions do, they take the COA, their COA, cost of attendance, they subtract the EFC, the expected family contribution, and this determines your financial need. And that's what they look at to determine what kind of aid they will give you. Okay? So, again, what they do is they take their personal post-secondary institutions' cost of attendance, because all post-secondary institutions are all going to be different, cost of attendance minus your EFC, and that's going to give you a financial need. And that's what they determine. That's what they base their determination on as far as the financial aid that you're eligible for. Okay. Of course, that's all federal and state. Okay, but I do want to talk a little bit about non-federal and state aid in the form of scholarships. I know that the counselors here do a really good job of providing information about local scholarships This includes businesses, employers, churches, civic groups, community organizations, and clubs. All of those things, they determine the eligibility criteria. You're not going to find that eligibility criteria in that booklet, in the source, because this is not government ran. This is ran by private institutions. And one of the most important things I can say for you to check out is the institutional scholarships. Whatever institution you're interested in, check out to see what their institutional scholarships are. Okay, because sometimes, especially if you're going out of state too, check that out to see if they have in-state rates in the form of institutional scholarships. But they are awarded by that institution. They determine the eligibility requirements. The school's websites should indicate all of those institutional aids that are available for you. This is what my daughter, she had that 2 points away type of thing from this institutional scholarship. It's always a good thing to take a look because we're talking $2,500 a month, or not a month, I'm sorry, a year. Wouldn't that be great? Anyway, okay, we're going to look specifically now, going back to government, we're going to look at Missouri Student Aid. And I know I've kept you here quite a while, so I'll try to go through this as quickly as I can. The first page of Missouri Student Aid is on page 34. A plus is on there. I'm not going to go into that because I know that you guys are very familiar with the A plus information. Again, if you have questions about it later, I can attempt to answer those. But the main grant that the big money is in is with our Access Missouri Financial Assistance Program, and that's on page 35. Okay. Under that, you're going to see that the eligibility requirements. About halfway down under the eligibility requirements, one of the first things that people want to know is, as far as financial need is concerned, what's the eligibility requirement? If you have an EFC of $12,000 or less, as long as you meet all of the other eligibility requirements, having your FAFSA in before February 1st, you are guaranteed some money from Access Missouri. How much money? If you turn the page and look on page 36, it will have the award amounts. If you're going to a 2-year institution, anywhere from $300 to $1,300 a year. If you're going to a public 4-year institution or State Technical College of Missouri, or a private institution, anywhere from $1,500 to $2,850 a year. Next, you'll find the Bright Flight. And this is specifically related to the ACT scores. If there's all kinds of different determination factors as far as this is concerned, the top 3 to 5% of ACT scores in the state of Missouri, all of those students are eligible for some money, okay? If you have questions about that, just let me know. There are also some other state grants and scholarships on page 37. There's the Marguerite Ross Barnett Memorial Scholarship. If you have to work while you're going to school, that's one that you may want to take a look at. On page 38, we have the other state financial aid programs. It has kind of an explanation of what each one of those are. Again, the way that you apply for these is by filling out that FAFSA. If you have to do anything else, it will indicate it on this page. And then finally, we have the federal student aid, and that is on page 39. Federal student aid does not necessarily include scholarships, but it does include grants, employment, and loans. One of the most popular grants from the federal aid is the Pell Grant. And if you look on page 40, the federal Pell Grant eligibility requirements, it tells you that you have to meet the requirements on page 39. Okay, so if you flip it back, you can read through those eligibility requirements and see if you could potentially be eligible for that. How much is available? I will tell you now that in here it tells you the maximum is $5,815 a year, but I will tell you that next year, I know it's already gone through, that they're going to raise that to $5,920. So that is what the maximum Pell Grant price is, not price, but award amount is. Okay. There's also the FSEOG grant. Again, you have to meet the same eligibility requirements, and you can receive anywhere from $100,000 to $4,000 a year based on your financial need. Not every post-secondary institution will grant this particular grant. So if you think you may be eligible for it, and it is going to determine what college you go to, make sure that you ask that post-secondary institution, college, if they accept that grant. Teacher Education Assistance for College and Higher Education Grant, which is on the next page. Again, the eligibility requirements and amounts are listed on there. The Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant is also on there. If you are a student who has, whose parent or guardian was a member of the U.S. Armed Forces and died as a result of services performed in Iraq or Afghanistan after September 11th, 2001, then you definitely take a look at this grant. You'll have some money out there coming to your post-secondary institution tuition. The final page under, not final, second to final page is the work study information. Again, you want to make sure that you check this on your FAFSA if you are interested at all, because if you don't check it, then you're not going to be eligible for it. And finally, what we've all been waiting for on this blue page, the dreaded loans. It explains what each one of the loans are and the annual awards. Notice that those are subject to change. They do have potential to change year to year, so definitely check that out if you are interested in accepting, if any of those loans are on your award letter. Before you accept it, check it out, make sure the interest rates are the same, everything is what's listed in here. The first one, Federal Perkins Loan. With this one, there's been kind of a, it's available, it's not available, it's available, it's not available. So definitely check that out for next year. It should be available, there shouldn't be a problem. And if you take it out for this next year, they will grandfather you in to where they won't take it away. If they say they're no longer going to offer it, they'll wait until you're finished with school, okay? The next two, direct subsidized and direct unsubsidized loans. These are, again, offered through the federal government. Subsidized, what's the difference between the two? Subsidized, mainly, is that the interest, the student does not have to pay the interest while attending school, okay? Unsubsidized, you will have to pay as you're attending school. So which one is better? Well, the subsidized. If you can get subsidized, take subsidized over unsubsidized. But realize there is a maximum amount for each of those. It's not like it will cover everything. It won't cover that total COA, cost of attendance. If you look under the direct, you will see the maximum is $5,500 depending on grade level and dependency status. For unsub, this is a little bit more, the maximum, it maxes out at $20,500 a year. Okay. Finally, this is for the parents. On the very bottom is direct plus loans. It looks wonderful, it's great and everything. Just realize, parents, that the loans that were up here are going to have the student's name on it. The student will be responsible for paying those back. They will come looking for the student. The bottom one, the plus loan, they're going to come for you if you take that one out, parents. It will have your name on it. It's a parent's loan where it really does cover, you know, if ever you meet all the eligibility requirements, it will cover the total COA minus the other financial aid that you've received. Okay? So there is a way, you know, to finance that college, but realize if you do take out a plus loan, that's under the parents' names, not the students. Okay. And, all right. I have that quiz. Are you guys ready? Did you get everything I said? I just threw it all out there, I hope so. The first one, this should be an easy one, and just raise your hand because after I ask all of the questions, the people who answer correctly can get a little gift of some sort. I have some goodies in the back up here, okay? What are the 4 types of financial aid? Okay, scholarships, grants, loans, and employment or work study. Those are the 4 types of student aid, okay? What is the #1 way to apply for those types of student aid through the government? FAFSA, filling out the FAFSA. Very good. What is a COA? Way back there.
Cost of attendance.
Cost of attendance. Can you answer, now does the cost of attendance, is that just institution and book, or not institution, tuition and books?
It covers everything.
That covers everything. Travel, food, all of that stuff. Good. Cost of attendance. What's an EFC? Expected family contribution. Is that amount that you have to pay out of pocket?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. You'll have to look at that award letter to determine what kind of financial aid you're going to get to see what will have to come out of pocket. Okay? Who all needs an FSA ID? Parent and child. At least one parent, and I say child, student, and the students will need an FSA ID. Okay? And what year's income tax records will seniors use for their 2017-18 FAFSA? Over there. 2015, prior year. Where, this is a 3-part question. Where can you go to get or 3-answer question, to get an estimate, where can you go to find help filling out the FAFSA? What can you do to get help filling out the FAFSA? Go to a FAFSA Frenzy. Do you guys remember the date of the FAFSA Frenzy here?
October 13th.
February 13th. It's a Sunday, 2 to 4. So that's one answer. Go to a FAFSA Frenzy. What's another thing you can do? November, what did I say? November, thank you. November 13th. November 13th. This month, 13th. Not too long away. Okay. What else can you do? Yeah. Ask the financial aid office of the institution your student may attend with help. Just call them, say, hey, I got this question, can you help me out? They're usually more than happy to help you out. And one more thing you can do. Call or go to the website, that 1-800-4-FED-AID, that's a good one. Okay. This is the last one. How is your financial need determined? How does the post-secondary institution determine your financial need? It is based on the FAFSA. What do they, yep. Okay, they'll take the cost of attendance minus your estimated family contribution, and that will determine your financial need, and that's what they base those award letters on. Okay? Any general questions? Yes? www.fafsa.ed.gov, G-O-V. It should be in that book. I want to say it's around page 24 or 25. Yes?
The SAR, I have confirmation. How long does it take to get the SAR? Will it mail or email?
If you complete the FAFSA online, you should receive the SAR within 3 days. If you had to fill out a paper version of the FAFSA for some reason, that could be up to 2 weeks before you receive the SAR. They may send an email to the student indicating that there needs to be a change on the FAFSA, before they can complete the SAR. So if you don't get it within 3 days, make sure the student checks the email to see if there's anything out there that you need to change on the FAFSA before you get the SAR.
But if you have a confirmation number, you should be good, right?
You should be good, but you know, the confirmation number though just indicates that you've completed the FAFSA,
Okay.
not that it's 100% accurate and they have everything they need. It's just that you have completed it. Yes?
If you don't receive an email after you've gotten through the confirmation number and everything, or paper, then where do you go to get your SAR?
And it's been 3 days and you haven't received anything to the emails?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, really? I would definitely go to that 1-800-4-FED-AID
Okay.
and give them your information. You can also go to the FAFSA on the web. There should be information on there too, that contact us information. You can do live chat on there if you wanted to. Yes?
If you have more than one child in college, is it just one parental FAFSA ID that is triple both of them?
Yes, you will only have to have one FSA ID assigned to yourself, whether you're filling out one FAFSA or 10. So if you have 2 students that are in college at the same time, you will only have one FSA ID for yourself. The students will each have one as well, and those 2 will be different. Okay? Any other questions, general questions? Yeah.
How early is too early to get past the number 90?
Good question. You can get the FSA ID now. You can get it anytime.
At sophomore, is it too early for them to get it?
No,
Not
no. But the trick with it is to make sure you don't lose any of that information. Because that once you're given one, that's yours to keep forever and ever. Amen. Yeah.
You said on the FAFSA form that you could put up to 10 colleges that they would link and send your information to. Do you
Yes.
need to have applications sent to those entities?
That's a great question. Normally, if you send that SAR to each of those colleges, what they will look is that if you've been admitted, not that you are enrolled or that you've sent in your ACT or anything else, just that I see you've been accepted, that's all that they'll need, and then they'll send it. However, there are institutions that will send it automatically because they want you to be able to compare the costs of the colleges to determine the best cost for you.
So if you don't have an application there, you can still put that college on there for them to receive your information, thinking that possibly that would be.
Absolutely, yes. And it is easier to put it on there now than to go back and try to fix it. So if you're thinking that, I don't know if I'll go to that ever, even those backup colleges, I've told my daughter, I said, put Lincoln University on there because that's close to home. Just put it on there in case something were to happen. Just do it. It can't hurt. It can't hurt.
So if it's not on there, it's something that can be added to if like they've got a spring athletic scholarship that, or got accepted for.
Yes, you can add it later, absolutely. Mhm. And whenever you go through the FAFSA, it'll give you information about how to get back in the FAFSA and make changes, so. Okay. All right, any other general questions? Thank you all so much for coming. If you answered one of those questions for me, you're welcome to come up and get a little treat that's in the bag.
Hey, parents and students, before you leave, if you need to go back and review this, if you go to YouTube and you type in, or actually if you go to is it going to be on the web page? On the school web page?
In the morning.
And there'll be a school web page link to this presentation. It's called CHS Planning and Paying for College 2016. So if you have any friends who were unable to come tonight, just tell them to go to the school website.